Many of you are passionate about golf or cooking, traveling, gardening. My firm, Victory Consulting, Sales and Leadership Development, we're obsessed with how human behavior in the relationships that we engage in, how they kill or hurt or ideally drive and accelerate business opportunities. And we've come to one simple conclusion, that as human beings, we buy on emotion. We justify with logic. Even online, even in the age of digitization, there is some emotional win. Very slowly look in their eyes and say, "I've always loved you." What? I thought we were supposed to engage, no? Isn't this about engaging or? That has absolutely nothing to do with sales, but just looking around and watching how you engaged or didn't, how many of you by show of hands are introverts? That's a terrible question. Why would I ask that? You're an introvert. Plus, it's hard to raise your hand when your extrovert next to you is still holding your hand, waiting for a warm hug. We work with a lot of technically proficient, operationally experienced engineers, our firm does. And these are folks who have to sell. And when I say people buy an emotion and they justify with logic, a lot of engineers give me that look like, emotion, I've heard that word somewhere. I know what that means. But emotion is what it's about. But when we hear it, it sounds too soft. What I'd like to do is break it down, because as you hear these statistics, it gets a little spooky on how commoditized things seem to be trending. And in fact, what we have is such a small window of opportunity in which to take an advantage of building a breakthrough connection. How well do we do it? That's what I love to break apart. Love human behavior, and here's 4 objectives. If we can I throw this up here? There we go. Feedback in blind spots. Again, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, keep things interactive. How many of you, again, by show of hands, I just want to take a quick look, have ever seen yourself on videotape in a professional forum? Raise your hand if you would. Good, well, that's not bad. It's a real delight, isn't it, to see yourself on videotape? I think our firm has videotaped over 4,500 people in the last 12 years. And it's interesting, we'll videotape you in a small sales or communication or leadership workshop, and then we'll send you to another room to watch your video. In 12 years, 4,500 people, not one person has yet come back to the room of the other participant and say, "Hey, get in here. This is awesome. You got to see me. I'm telling you, I got copies for everyone. Show them at your family reunion." Just the opposite. People don't like it. One guy said to me, "Joe, I would rather have a root canal without Novocaine than ever watch that again." We had a group of 6 that I was working with, 6 executives, polished, experienced, intelligent executives. 6 out of 6 said, "I'm mortified at what I just saw in there." And by the way, we were working with this 6 because these were guys for a construction company that were getting ready to compete in a bid to build a $300 million high-rise. And 6 out of 6 of them said, "I feel completely disconnected." How can we build breakthrough connections with other people when in fact there is such a distance between our intent and our impact? And what we want to get to is what I call perception alignment. But those willing to go deep on getting feedback, removing their blind spots, and constantly taking deeper looks inside, especially around their relationships, because I unequivocally, irrefutably, indisputably believe that all of us in this room are in the relationship business first. And so I would ask you to open your mind set a great tone throughout this week. When you hear Nathan come up and when you hear Seth come up and he speaks on the generations. Wait till you see Seth. He looks like he's right off the cover of GQ. He had to win some ultimate male contest somewhere in his travels. Wait till you see this guy. I'm a married man, but he's a gorgeous guy. Okay. Most people say sarcastic. First time I said this, it was to a group of 200 people. I said, most people say sarcastic. And the guy in back yells, no kidding. 3 months ago, I was in Austin, Texas speaking, and one of the person yelled out pretty loudly, arrogant. And I said, who said that? And he goes, who do you think said arrogant? What kind of tone do you set when you greet people? If you look at this, let's look at the top of this iceberg is our conscious. It's how we operate on a daily basis. In our studies of human behavior and doing in-depth assessments of how you behave and how you perform and the relationships you build and how they connect with others, what we find is there's so much beneath the surface. But very few people really want to go that deep to find out what's beneath the surface. I would encourage you to think about that. Todd said at the beginning about networking. Network, ask questions, get beyond our own fears and our own securities. Because as we look into this here, mind share, market share, your share, right? Your value proposition and the tactics for your growth, retention, acquisition, the resources you have at United right here in this room are limitless. Are we willing to be empowered? Are you willing to be the empowered user this week and beyond? Because hearing it, this is an unbelievable demonstration and showcase. What are we going to do about it? Because statistically, we won't do very much. And that to me breaks my heart. And it makes me want you to hold hands once more. All right, so I would encourage you to think about being open as we move forward. When I think about your differentiators, I don't think about your value proposition first. I think about your personal values. What do you stand for? What is your purpose? What difference do you want to make, not just in business, in life? Because Cody talked about being inseparably linked. I think it's very difficult to hide our character, and there's nothing more important than character. Human beings, we want RICA, R-I-C-C-A. We want to be respected, included, challenged. We want to contribute to a cause bigger than ourselves, whatever that cause may be, based on your personal values, and 100% of us, we want to be appreciated. What difference do you make? And how do your personal values translate to maximizing your customer's experience? And it's little things that make a big difference. And this is about establishing rapport. And if you know anything about social or emotional intelligence, this is what infuses great connections. It infuses great relationships. How do we build rapport? How do we do it in a way that's authentic to you, that isn't just a sales skill that robs us of who we are principally and the difference we want to make authentically? How do we establish common ground? How do we positively influence people within the first 30 seconds? How do we try to connect with them beyond the workplace without being creepy? We'll talk about things like that. And that will help us build multi-dimensional relationships so we have multiple foundations on which to stand. To identify the gaps and opportunities in your business and your sales culture, your personal relationships within your organizations, as well as how you approach your prospects and your existing customers. And maybe more importantly, I'm going to turn from keynote speaker to facilitator to make sure that you are engaging with your peers around this, because I think the people who live it every day is where you get it. I also want to find out how you sync with their differentiators and what a difference it makes. And you know what? When I think about working with organizations, I also think about the human being behind that. What is that person's goals? What do they want to be doing differently in the next 12 to 18 months? Because can I help that person, not just their company, but that person go to their new level of success? That to me goes from one-dimensional to multi-dimensional. Okay? The better your relationships, the shorter your sales cycle, and the more money you will make. And I would ask you, beyond the money, when you think about where your relationships could go to a new level, what would your answer be? We'll take a deep dive into this afternoon.